the last two lectures, we tried to understand about the tribals, how they are distributed in our country, and the names of some of the well known tribes of India, and where exactly they are located in the length and breadth of our country. The next two lectures, we will go a little deep into the life of the people, try to understand their rituals and practices. To begin with, we will look into the sex ratio, status of women, marriage, and later on about education in tribal areas. When we think of status of women, marriage practices and sex ratio, it is like a triangle. They call it triangle sui generis, that means the only one of its kind in the world. An intricate relationship between status of women, marriage, and sex ratio. It is like what we call in India Sangam, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. Status of women like Ganga, marriage practices like Yamuna, and sex ratio underneath like Saraswati. Very subliminal, very sensitive, but not readily visible. So, that is the Sangam of all these three aspects, which makes it a unique triangle so far as the tribal life is concerned. Status of women in that sense is related to the marriage practices, and marriage practices bring about status of women differently. To understand this a little bit better, we may have to look into the importance given to women, which in a way depends on the type of society it is. There are two different types of social structures that are normally identified: patriarchy, which is male dominant, and matriarchy, which is female dominant. But in general, among the tribals, there is an important place given to women. We will understand when you try to get the meaning of a practice called Kuwad, much better known among African tribes, but there are also tribes in India which have this practice. Kuwad is a very interesting practice among the tribals, which tells one immediately about the importance attached to women. This practice involves the man responsible for pregnancy becoming positively alert, very much unlike civilized people. When a woman becomes pregnant, the man responsible for pregnancy in the civilized society may become negatively alerted, but here is a practice called Kuwad, where he is positively alerted. Interestingly, this woman could be his wife, the relationship could be extramarital, relationship could be premarital, and the man and the woman responsible for this pregnancy may or may not be living in the same house, may not be even in the same tribal setting. The practice of Kuwad involves the man becoming positively alert, as I said. The moment he comes to know that the woman is pregnant, the man responsible for pregnancy takes to the diet restrictions. From 4th month onwards of the pregnant woman, she is confined to home. He is also confined to home, and 6th month onwards she does not do hard work, he does not do hard work. 8th month pregnancy, she is confined to completely one room of the house, he is also confined to one room of the house, and labor pains around 9-month pregnancy, and he also gets labor pains. You and I cannot ask whether he really gets labor pains, but then there are two advantages of this practice, that is, the moment a woman is pregnant, the man responsible for pregnancy is automatically identified. The second one, the woman, because of this practice, gets a lot of moral support during her problems of pregnancy. Now, obviously, matriarchy provides for the importance of woman to go much higher than that of the man in patriarchy. In fact, in matriarchy, which is mother dominant, the woman is very important. She is in fact the breadwinner for the family, unlike in patriarchy where the man is important. Now, probably when we get into the marriage practices that are practiced by different tribes in our country, you will understand the importance of woman better. The most important thing we need to know in order to understand the importance of woman is the concept of bride price. Bride price is the perfect antithesis of dowry that we have known in the civilized world. Now, the bride practice is that when a girl is to be married, a certain rate is fixed for the girl, for her to be taken as the daughter-in-law into a particular family. Another aspect of tribal marriage we have to note is the utter pragmatism that prevails. Marriage in a tribal community is almost like a civil arrangement between the man and the woman, very much unlike the entire religious aura that surrounds the marriage among the non-tribal people. The first variety we talk about is marriage by service. This is a direct derivative of the practice of bride price. If a man who wants to marry a girl is not capable of bringing up the money that is for bride price, he will offer to serve the in-laws family for a period equivalent to the amount of bride price that he is supposed to come up with. And after the service period is over, then they are declared as husband and wife through a formal ceremony. Then the choice is left to them where they want to live together as husband and wife. Similarly, there is marriage by probation. The girl's family wants to know whether this man is capable of taking care of the wife, bring up the children, can work and earn for a living. So, there is a probation period. He is asked to live with the girl's family, and the girl's family will be a direct witness to the abilities of the man. At the end of the probationary period, they are married off. Again, the choice is given to them where they want to establish their family. Marriage by capture. The man responsible for marrying a particular girl whom he is interested in will physically capture, like we might have seen in some of our movies. He takes a few friends with him and he chooses a special day or festival in the village, in the tribal village, and he along with his friends physically captures the girl and takes her away to a hiding place. Then the parents of the girl try to trace him out, pacify and celebrate the marriage. Similarly, is a ceremonial capture, that is, when this girl whom he is interested in is coming in the mela, the jatra, the special occasion of the tribal family, he will apply vermilion on the forehead of the girl coming from nowhere, and that symbolizes that he is interested in marrying her, and then the talks begin and that they are married off. Marriage by intrusion, that is, the girl who is interested in marrying a particular boy, but the boy has some problems about marrying the girl because of his own parents or the girl's parents. What he does is he intrudes into the girl's family with certain baggages, and they call him Garjamai, that is the in-law of the family itself. He goes and intrudes, sits there and tries to convince the parents of the girl that they have to marry her off to him. Similar one with the girl is marriage by sit-in. The girl who is interested in marrying a boy will go with bag and baggage and go into the boy's family and sit in there and say, unless you allow me to marry your son, I am not going to go out of this house. Marriage by elopement is a perfect practical arrangement which makes it totally civil. The boy and the girl who are interested in getting married elope themselves together to a nearby part of the forest, and they disappear for a few days. The parents of both sides try to locate them, bring them back, and they talk together and decide to marry them off. Marriage by prowess is a very interesting practice that establishes the manhood of the man who wants to marry a particular girl. Marriage by prowess involves a particular occasion of the tribal community where there is a certain pole on which at the height of the pole is kept some little coconut and gourd, and there are two circles drawn around that pole, an inner circle and outer circle. Inner circle is surrounded by the women who want to get married. Outer circle is surrounded by women who are encouraging them to get into the act. Now, the man who wants to get into marriage with a particular girl is supposed to climb up the pole and reach the top and collect the coconut and jaggery and put it into his mouth. But when he is climbing, the women in the first circle have the liberty of doing anything they feel like, including scratching, pulling down his clothes, whatever, in order to stop him from climbing. Beyond all this, if the man proves the prowess that he is a real man, he will climb up beyond all this and reach for the coconut and the jaggery, puts it into the mouth. And the most interesting part of it is, once he climbs down the pole, he has the liberty of pointing out to any particular girl in the first circle and say, I want to marry you. And the joke goes in the tribal communities that any woman who is not happy with her husband, the way he is treating her, may threaten, next time when the festival comes, I am going to be in the first circle, watch out for me. If you continue to ill treat me like this, I will go into the first circle and choose the man that I want to live with. Marriage by ceremonial capture, the girl now after the man, in a particular situation, she chooses along with her friends and tries to pacify the man to marry her ceremonially, whatever it is accepted in the particular tribal community. We come towards the end of this lecture talking about education. Many of us do not realize education is a very, very important aspect when it comes to the tribe. But the most important thing we need to note that in all our programs, we do not distinguish between education and literacy, which I think when it comes to tribals is a very, very important distinction we need to maintain, because we have already noted that an average tribal community does not have a written script. Then what is it we mean by education? In education, we normally substitute it by the term literacy. We must note that education is a very, very much broader concept where body, mind and soul will all have to develop in an integrated manner. In that sense, literacy is a very minor part of education. So, when we think of the item of education so far as the tribals are concerned, we have to first answer the question distinguishing between education and literacy. Do you want to make them literate? In what language? The most basic question, because they do not have a written script. Then the type of education that we want to give. What is it we want to give them? What exactly should be the content of education? What purpose for which we want to educate them? Educate, quote unquote, does not necessarily mean literate. We have to give them the knowledge, we have to give them the information. But knowledge and information for what? For developing them. Then what is tribal development? The immediate example you can easily give is sapling. You plant a sapling, and what do you need to do? You need to give enough water and micronutrients, and the plant grows by itself and blossoms. It is the very nature. We have to think of tribal development in this particular meaning. We have to nourish them, we have to give them what they need, so that they can develop by themselves. Because when we think of educating them with the meaning of literacy, the first question that comes is mother tongue. We know too well that the tribals speak a language for which there is no script, and if we have to educate them in the meaning of literacy, we will have to use a certain language which is totally alien to them. That means, we are going to pull them away from their cultural uniqueness. Therefore, the field of education, when it comes to tribal education, we will have to be answering a very crucial question, the purpose for which we are giving them that education. to the extent to which we hang around with the term literacy, I think we will be misleading the tribals in the name of development, in the name of education, because if they are taught in a language that is alien to them, if they are taught to learn a certain script which they have not seen, they are going to become aliens in their own culture. We take finally therefore a sociological approach to the approach of education. There are natural barriers. The first question we need to answer when we take the tribal people in the name of education is, do they want to get so called educated at all? Are there barriers? There is general belief among the tribal people, almost like in our rural areas, that a boy or a girl who learns in a language that is not very common for them, the boy or girl is going to be lost for the community. There are also taboos with respect to the gender. There are, like in our rural areas, tribal people who believe that all this called education, becoming literate, learning to do the ways of the outside world, they are all fine for men and boys, not so much for girls. All said and done, tradition survives and propagates itself more through the women rather than the men. Therefore, there are tribes like our villagers who want to contain their women and girls, controlling them from learning too much about the outside world. So, there are taboos. Like in our villages, there are tribal people who do not like their girls to go from in front of their eyes. Education and literacy would certainly take them away. The most important prejudice that prevails among the tribal people, almost like our villagers, is that a boy or a girl who gets educated outside of the community becomes a misfit. The boy or the girl who gets educated outside also thinks himself or herself that I am now not quite fit to go back to my community, and the community also comes to believe that a boy or a girl who is educated outside of the community is now not fit enough to come back and live in this community. To sum up what we have learned from today's lecture, the foremost is that women's status, marriage and sex ratio are an intricately related triangle, once of its own kind in the world. The second one we have noted from today's lecture is the concept of bride price, which is a perfect antithesis of dowry that we have known in the civilized world. Bride price indicates the importance given to the woman in tribal life. The third one we have noted, with the variety of marriage practices we have analyzed, that marriage in the tribal community is a civilian affair, very much unlike the religious aura that surround the marriage in the non-tribal world. The fourth one, the most important one, is the concept of education. We have to decide the purpose for which we want to educate, whether education means only literacy or something else. We have to decide the content of education going by the goal for which we want to educate the tribal people.